I think the only academic in the team, I was asked to just kind of help frame what's the context of energy, water, and food security that we're talking about, that we want businesses to kind of come in and kind of do well, not only for themselves, but for society. And so what I'm going to kind of now start off is by saying that there are no silver bullets. And since this is India, no Ramabanas and no sure shots. So instead, what we have is, in common, the water, energy, food security efforts, what they have in common. I just list out kind of 10 kind of broad issues, then the question of so what, and then I'll just leave with one kind of passing thought. What these efforts have in common are they're extremely subject to diversity of risks, from natural hazards, climate, for example, trade risks, market risks. When you have businesses, civil society, governments coming in, you have all of these kind of risks at play. Second is you have them playing across very, very different agroeconomic and socio-administrative diversity. Every 50 to 100 miles, they change. So you're not really talking of large kind of systems that you can understand and begin to kind of deploy. So they're extremely kind of context-driven, contextual. They also are desperately, you cannot avoid, they really are determined by cross-scale interactions from kind of from the farm, village, upwards to kind of nation states, kind of cross border issues. So you cannot avoid, there is no such thing as spatial leapfrogging. For example, like the IT technical revolution. When you talk about food security or water security, for example, they're very, very spatially co-located across these dimensions. They are, of course, these efforts are very capital intensive. Capital in the old style of kind of really, you need a lot of capital to kind of get up and running, and they're very long-term efforts. They're not kind of quick and easy, they're kind of very long-term, so both capital and long-term. Many of them have protected IPRs that result in higher costs for users. And for the right reasons, the IPRs have a certain cost associated, so they don't come cheap. They don't, nor are they, irrespective of what the policymakers kind of promise in countless negotiations, there are costs associated with these in kind of moving from, kind of, for example, kind of one set of agricultural commodities to another. You have IPR issues that you need to consider. And they're also under varying, I say varying regulatory oversights, being in the public domain. Water, food, agricultural issues they have oversight. So you cannot really talk about either completely state-led or unfettered market, or even kind of, I would say, unfettered civil society institutions. There is a mix. And there is kind of marked increasingly by efforts towards scientific precision through modeling, which I don't think is all that positive. And I'll say kind of why maybe in the question and answer discussion, that you need to have more of a heuristic understanding rather than this precision of specific agro-ecological systems that are modeled endlessly. And then they are great for that specific agroecological context, but 100 miles from there, they just kind of fall apart. They are guided by a development approach. All of these efforts are guided by broadly a development approach that goes from piloting to scaling up. So that's where you have all of this kind of cascading risks coming into play, that it may work beautifully in a pilot setting, but as soon as you talk about cross-scalar, or you talk about a slightly different agro-ecosystem, what you thought of as a great solution involving tripartite, civil society, private sector, and the government just kind of begins to fall apart. Then, of course, there is, unfortunately, there's almost a scorched earth policy on the part of some influential NGOs over technology, over which technologies can be selected. For example, BT is like a lightning rod on which stakeholders you can work with or cannot work with, and infrastructural choices that they take no prisoners. So it's a very difficult kind of terrain in all these dimensions to work. And these are, of course, led, as all you know, led in governments by institutions that work within silos, marked by kind of fierce turf protection. Whatever we say about excellent partnerships really need to, but these are marked by kind of these turf wars. So these issues impact in varying combinations that result in kind of cascades marked by uncertainty. Mainly what businesses cannot handle, for that matter, no institution can handle, is uncertainties and risks, costs and outcomes. So you need to kind of get a handle on what's the nature of this uncertainty, even though we cannot actually we cannot reduce these uncertainties, so at least begin to understand them. And so not a situation where I would think private sector will go boldly. So this calls for what I think is a slightly different approach. That's one that's marked by kind of networks of specialized knowledge that intersect on specific problems, not on esoteric issues, but on specific kind of problems that are challenge-driven from the ground up, with less, I would think, less and not more scientific precision, providing kind of primacy of place, not primacy of kind of global knowledge, but primacy of place, and working with less kind of scientific, more of a informed heuristic understanding of what works, how it works, what doesn't work, rather than try to get into the specifics of why things work in a specific setting, because the setting is very ephemeral. When you talk about these very large problems in the previous sessions that talked about these very, very large kind of global problems that are also shared locally of these, for example, energy security, water security. And so there is a practical need. All of us say there is a practical need for partnership. It's not unfettered. It's not kind of state, nor is it any kind of pure the civil society. So what I would suggest is there is a kind of a global initiative. It's called the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, recently initiated at the request of the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. It's led by Professor Jeffrey Sachs, to take on these challenges in a very practical sense, to bring the best science, what we know works, what we know doesn't work, engaging scientific, academic communities to help deliver sustainable development both nationally and internationally. So I'd be happy to have your questions. Thank you, Vikram.
Thank you. Thanks very much.